Hello everybody, welcome to Happy Plate. I'm Jewel. For today's story, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of twins separated at birth? Of course. Have you heard of triplets separated at birth? Who then all met each other? Today's your lucky day because I'm going to tell you the story about 3 6-month-old babies who were separated and they all managed to accidentally find each other as young men. So stick around. We'll tell you that story for our food today. Sister has made us another beautiful meal here that I'm literally drooling over right now. We have gochujang glazed chicken and garlic honey glazed chicken with some crab rice and kimchi on the side because kimchi goes with everything. All right, so grab a snack and join us. Let's take first bites and then we'll jump into the story. Okay, first bites. Which should we try first? The honey garlic or the gochujang?
The gochujang's really good, but so is the honey garlic, so.
I'm gonna go with gochujang then. I guess I already knew which one I wanted to try first. All right, let's dig in and get a big piece. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ooh, it's so sweet and spicy. It's so good. We're gonna take a break from all this food because I'm like stuffing my face really fast. We're gonna start our story with Robert. Robert showed up for his first day of school at Sullivan Community College. And even though he didn't know anybody, he's kind of walking around and everyone's like, oh, hey, welcome back. And like high-fiving him. And there were girls that went up to him, like kissed him on the cheek. So he's like, why does it seem like everybody knows me? So then he was approached by this other student named Michael Domnitz. And so he originally greeted him and Robert's just kind of like, I don't know who you are. And Michael's like, were you adopted when you were little? And Robert says, yeah, I was. And he goes, oh my God, I know your twin brother. You have a twin. And so he's kind of like taken aback. He had no idea. So Michael calls his friend Edward. And when Edward picks up the phone, they start talking to him. Robert is like blown away. He's like, oh my God, this voice is my voice on the phone. He was so freaked out. So that same day, Michael and Robert decide that they're going to get in a car and they're going to drive over to Michael's friend Edward's home. So it turns out the reason why Michael knew Edward was because they actually went to college together that year prior, the same community college that Robert showed up to that day, but he had actually quit school the year before. So when Robert was walking through around campus, everyone's like, hey, welcome back, thinking he was Edward that whole time. So they show up, they go knocking on Edward's door, and the door opens, and Robert is blown away. He is staring back at his own face. They're super pumped. Immediately they're like, oh my God, we're brothers, and they start talking and comparing things like, what do you like? Oh, I like that too, and what do you like to do? So immediately, because this is kind of a strange story, you know, they're getting coverage like in the newspapers, and they're on the news, and everyone's calling them wanting to do like interviews and stuff. So then one day a student at Queens College, his name is David, he picks up a newspaper and there's this picture in an article and he's looking at this picture and he's like, oh my God, these two dudes are me. So the last of the triplets is now discovered and he's like, oh my God, these must be my brothers. He was also adopted, but also did not know that he was one of 3. David gets in contact with Edward's mom and explains to her, you know, I saw this picture and I look exactly like them. I think I'm their triplet. And her response was, oh my God, they're coming out of the woodwork. Now it's the 3 of them and they are all ecstatic. They are like long lost family. They had so many similarities. But the story gets a little bit deeper. So once it's discovered that there's 3 of them, the adoptive parents are kind of like, how is this possible? Why didn't we know? We need to get in touch with the agency and find out like what's going on. So they get in touch with the agency and they start asking questions. And come to find out, when these boys were all adopted at 6 months old, all of the prospective adoptive parents were told that these babies were going to be a part of a routine childhood development plan. So they were told that if they approved these babies being part of this routine childhood study, that they'd be more likely to be approved to adopt the babies. So this is what the parents were told, but they had no idea that these babies they were trying to adopt were one of 3. So naturally, the parents, they wanted these babies, so they agreed to let them be a part of the study. So the study was led by Dr. Peter Neubauer, who actually was close and worked with Sigmund Freud's daughter, Anna. For the first 10 years of these kids' lives, they had some of the staff psychologists that would show up to their home and they would do different tests, like cognitive tests. They would have them take quizzes and do puzzles, and they would just talk to them, and they recorded everything on video. And it was usually about 4 times a year for like the first 10 years. Dr. Neubauer's study involved taking sets of twins and triplets and separating each one of the children and placing them into different households with different like economical levels, different emotional levels. And the whole reason for that was to actually study nature versus nurture. So to see how much is instilled with them and their connection as triplets or as twins, and how much is a result of their environment. So David was placed in a family that was working class. His father was a grocery store owner and he had a really warm and caring, loving mother. He had a great relationship with his parents. And Edward was placed in a family who were middle class. His father was a doctor and he grew up kind of a little more reserved. And Robert, he was placed in a more middle to upper class. So in the beginning, when the 3 of them kind of reunited and they were like, we're family, we're brothers, they had like a great time. They were best friends immediately. They had a lot in common. They loved each other. They even all got an apartment together in Flushing. They were in newspapers. They were on talk shows. They were even approached by a director who spotted them and recognized them and asked them if they wanted to be in her movie. They are actually in Desperately Seeking Susan, starring Madonna.
Oh.
Yeah. So in 1988, the 3 brothers ended up opening up a restaurant together. And it did really well over time. Each one of the brothers ended up getting married. They ended up having kids. It was said that Edward seemed like he put a lot more invested into the relationship because he had such an estranged relationship with his father. So once he found his 2 brothers, he was just all about them being his family. He just felt a connection with them that he never could with his dad. So unfortunately, as adults, Edward started showing some signs of bipolar. And their restaurant that the 3 of them had eventually ended up closing, and that kind of triggered something in Edward. And unfortunately, his depression got worse and he ended up taking his own life in 1995. And what's really sad is he would move all the time just so he could be closer to them. And at the time that he took his own life, he was living right across the street from one of the brothers. So sad. After Edward's suicide, Robert and David, they actually started drifting apart. Their relationship wasn't really the same. They kind of lost contact. They would keep in contact with each other's families a little bit, but it just was never the same again. And what's so strange is that entire big study, the whole purpose of separating these triplets when they were babies, the whole study was never published. And Dr. Neubauer actually ended up passing away, and he passed along all of the documents for this study to Yale with the contingency that they can't be released until 2065. which is crazy.
And so that everybody that was involved in the study will be dead, and they won't be able to get in trouble for it.
That's
Unless
what
you
one
find
would
a way
think.
to make us live forever.
Yeah, there's a reason why. I mean,
The families involved won't be able to do anything. The people involved.
if you think about it, so the doctor died in 2008.
Mm.
So then 2065, yeah, no one's going to be around to
Yeah.
pay the
and
price anymore.
if they-
So the brothers, you know, are still really upset about it because they feel that this could have been prevented. Here are these psychiatric professionals and researchers who are using children to perform a study, but look how it affected their life, you know? The two brothers did eventually get their hands on a little bit of footage, just a couple of random items, nothing significant. There is actually a documentary that's called 3 Identical Strangers that cover this story in detail. It sort of brought the brothers closer together again because they were working together and they kind of relived and rehashed through a lot of the things that they worked through. And it also gave them the opportunity to kind of call out the researchers and the different psychologists that were working on the study and just sort of ask them like, why would you do this to like human subjects, and sort of give them a little piece of their mind. So hopefully they got a little bit of closure out of that. But unfortunately, still to this day, there is no resolve for them. But I highly recommend, if you enjoyed this story, you should watch the documentary 3 Identical Strangers. And that's all I got for you this week. I got so carried away in this story, I didn't get to finish my food. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay. We have a pretty happy plate here. It's really just kind of bones. I apologize if you're one of those people who get freaked out by seeing bare bones, but the chicken was delicious. The rice was delicious. Gonna top off my meal with a mini banana moon pie because there's always room for dessert. Thanks again for joining us. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. You should subscribe while you're at it so you can come back next Thursday and see what we have in store for you.